Imagine you are a television network executive in the 2000s. Now, imagine that a fairly popular comedian and one of his creative partners come to you with a show idea. These guys are pretty good and have some real credentials, so you decide to hear them out. Their idea is to make a show that has all no-name actors, zero marketing, zero promotion, and it will air exclusively at 4 a.m. People will think it's a commercial, and there will be zero indication that it's an actual show. Although this may not sound like the recipe for a successful TV show, this exact concept would be the recipe for 47 episodes spanning 13 years and go on to create some of the most iconic and subversive horror masterpieces of all time. To learn the story of infomercials, the secrets of Too Many Cooks, the hidden alternate reality horror game, and what happens to Adult Swim infomercials, stick around to the end of this video. Welcome to Horror History. I've always been fascinated by the concept of stealth horror, or the concept of a piece of entertainment that doesn't appear to be horror on the surface, but gradually transitions from a non-threatening scenario to something more disturbing. I'll try not to use any examples that aren't already well known so I don't spoil anything for anyone, but I think at this point most people know about Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, a web series that appears to be a children's puppet show on the surface, but devolves into a panic, containing human organs, existential horror, cult behavior, and dark conspiracies. This video is the definition of they had us in the first half. I'm also a fan of a good non-standard mockumentary. Typically, the word mockumentary is used as a portmanteau of mock and documentary, a film that takes the form of a documentary but tells a fictional story, like that of a narrative film. One of the earliest examples is Orson Welles' 1938 radio broadcast, The War of the World, which was styled like a breaking news broadcast of an alien invasion, leading many radio listeners at the time to believe that aliens were actually invading the Earth. But apparently, the word mockumentary is not limited to projects that mock the documentary format, and can also include mocks of other formats. In fact, I used to love experimenting in this genre. Early on in my video making journey, I did a mock of a fitness video, and a mock of a wellness check interview.
Marina, what's happening? Marina!
But what do you get when you take stealth horror and mockumentary and combine them? Truly the most strange and unsuspecting form of creepy.
Too many cooks. Kill me.
But before I can get to Too Many Cooks, I've got to take it back to the Icelandic medication that sparked a controversy. Our story begins in 2008 at William Street in Atlanta, Georgia, where the office of Mike Lazzo is located. Lazzo had worked his way up from the shipping and receiving department of Turner Broadcasting System, or TBS, eventually becoming the first programmer in Cartoon Network's history in 1992, responsible for selecting and scheduling the content that was going on the air. One of his most notable attributes was his inventiveness when it came to late-night programming. Before the 1980s and the technology that allowed stations to broadcast 24 hours a day, they would have to sign off at the end of the night. In the US, stations would play the American National Anthem, or as I like to call it, the second part of Goodnight Dr. Death, around midnight to 2 a.m., and then there would just be 4 to 6 hours of color bars and tone until programming began again the next morning, which I've always found kind of creepy in itself in a liminal sort of way. Anyway, Nickelodeon was the first kids station to make the jump to 24-hour programming in 1985, and their solution for what to do with the channel while most of their kid audience was asleep was Nick at Night, which showed classic sitcoms from the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
You're wide awake. Hour after hour passes and still no sleep. And you wouldn't have it any other way, because you're a super achiever. Getting an early start on tomorrow tonight with Nick at Night Overnight. Let the slackers sleep while you spend quality time with quality shows. Hit sitcoms that will help you face the new day with a fresh perspective and a smile on your face. Nick at Night Overnight. It's why more and more Americans are getting by on less and less sleep.
Anyone who was a kid in the pre-YouTube era around the 90s or 2000s shares this collective memory of getting your eardrums rocked by the George Lopez theme in front of the TV in the middle of the night. But Cartoon Network couldn't do that, because it says cartoon in the name. Mike Lazzo was the guy who had solutions. First, he created Space Ghost Coast to Coast, an animated spoof of late-night talk shows hosted by a washed-up 60s superhero, which was geared towards adults.
Hello, I am Space Ghost. Welcome to my show.
Lazzo was the one to conceive the idea for the programming block Adult Swim, which initially aired at 10 p.m. Eastern and has only grown in success since its introduction in 2001. He was also involved in the creation and development of Toonami, which was known for showing anime which typically appealed to older kids and teenagers, eventually finding its home on Saturday evenings when that demographic would be more likely to stay up late. Because no school the next day. Let's go crazy. Let's eat 2 bowls of ice cream and stay up watching Super Saiyans or Sailor Guardians if you're a girl.
Uploading video for broadcast. Alright, Tom, we're ready.
I love this job.
To put it simply, Mike Lazzo proved to be the guy you talk to when it comes to inventive late-night television programming, which is why David Cross and John Benjamin were standing in his office, because they had an idea so crazy it could only work if they aired it at just the right time. Are you tired of those messy wires every time you try to untangle your headphones? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you as you hopelessly try to unknot this cord tangle of audio equipment? Well, I have the perfect deal for you. Blast their heads off with a f***ing tank. War of Tanks is a free-to-play mobile game where you can storm into enemy territory and go head-to-head with friends, family, and even loved ones and pets. But is it really healthy to deal with your interpersonal problems using simulated violence via pixels on a screen? No, of course not. Which is why hundreds of thousands of people are turning to app-based talk therapy. But what if there's a better way? There is. No one will disagree with you if you have a f***ing tank. But no one will want to disagree with you if you are a true alpha. And with the new course, Alpha Pills Bootcamp, you'll learn exactly how to dominate your peers, control women, and command respect by getting a f***ing tank. Which is why this video is sponsored by BFL Tanks and Manufacturing. Normal tanks can cost upwards of $250,000, but if you use my code CZsWorld15 at checkout, you're gonna be getting $15 off your first purchase if you purchase 2 or more tanks. So don't wait. Flatten your competition today with BFL Tanks. Some restrictions apply. Offer not valid in all 50 states. Gambling problem? Probably want to get that under control. David Cross's idea was originally called paid programming, which is what used to appear in the TV guide when infomercials played, and it was inspired by actual experiences of staying up too late, getting sleepy in front of the TV, and taking in one of these oversized ads during a moment of drowsy stupor. If you weren't around before the streaming era, infomercial is a portmanteau of information and commercial, because I guess portmanteaus are just the theme of this episode. They were longer than regular commercials, usually 30 to 60 minutes to fill an entire programming slot, and they would often air really late at night to take advantage of lower advertiser rates. Cross, who is known for his memorable role in the sitcom Arrested Development.
I'm afraid I just blew myself.
There's gotta be a better way to say that.
And Benjamin, who had worked for Mike Lazzo before as a voice actor on home movies.
Well, you try losing weight in just your fingers, it's not easy.
Had written multiple scripts for an infomercial parody that seems legit at first, then gradually gets weird, bizarre, and maybe unsettling as the viewer slowly realizes that it's not a real advertisement. Much like what you just saw if you didn't skip my brand deal segment. Now a lot of you have to go back. The idea that it would be aired in the middle of the night, and the idea that viewers wouldn't know if it was a real ad, was a part of the original pitch, according to Cross. The initial idea was that it would air between real infomercials, but it's not clear if that ended up happening. I don't have 100% confirmation, but it would appear that Lazzo ended up granting them a budget to produce this pilot based on the fact that his company, William Street, is listed as the production company on Wikipedia, and he would later complain about the production being too expensive. It seems like there were some other misconceptions or miscommunications that took place during that meeting. It was clearly important to Cross that nobody knew what it was going into it, but despite that, Adult Swim announced it during their panel at DragonCon in September 2009, leading Cross to believe that the network didn't really understand the project. Of course, the television business is a business, so it's hard to blame Lazzo for wanting to promote his product, but promoting it also takes away from the shock value, and Cross's stated intention was to fuck with people's heads. So it's a tricky situation. The pilot that they produced was called Icelandic Ultra Blue, and it would air November 3rd, 2009.
Are you always tired? Do you have depleted energy? Do you often feel agitated or irritable? Well, now there's an answer. Icelandic Ultra Blue.
The first 50 seconds seem like a standard commercial, but this guy is the first sign that something is up.
Before I started using Icelandic Ultra Blue, I was a loser. But look at me now. I'm ripped.
After this, it takes a slight turn to advertise a competition that they're holding in which musically inclined viewers can submit a new Icelandic Ultra Blue jingle with a chance for their composition to be selected. There are more strange details that just don't quite give it away. Like the music producer, Wendy Klitlock, the transition from medication commercial to Icelandic Ultra Blue air filter, and
Okay, my nigga, let's clean that last one up and everybody can get out of here.
From there, it totally goes off the rails, becoming an ad for a Nazi gold to cash service, a splinter removal company, an embalming product, and more. Before finally wrapping around to the intro, where we get the only real hint of horror that this pilot has to offer.
Icelandic Ultra Blue. Don't be stupid. You will buy these products. Phase 1 is complete.
Icelandic Ultra Blue would air around the same time throughout that month and was not received well, but also kind of had the desired effect. The Adult Swim message boards were apparently filled with people who were confused about what it was, and even today, the YouTube upload is scattered with people who were left in disarray. Wait, this wasn't a dream, so I'm not crazy. One day, years ago, I was watching Harvey Birdman on Adult Swim around 2:30 a.m. and this came on. As a kid, I always used to fall asleep watching Cartoon Network. Well, after 9, it turns into Adult Swim. I remember waking up one night and hearing the Icelandic Ultra Blue song, and still to this day, I've never been able to get it out of my head. So from David Cross and John Benjamin's point of view, mission accomplished. But from Mike Lazzo's point of view, viewers were upset that their Aqua Teen Hunger Force reruns were interrupted. So Adult Swim did not pick up the paid programming concept for a full series. But obviously, that's not the end of the story. Nothing happened for 2+ years, but in March 2012, comedian Aziz Ansari took what was at the time considered an unconventional approach to releasing his new comedy special, opting to sell it online for $5 instead of having it air on TV. However, to promote this special deal, they still ran paid advertisements on TV. One of these ads was what I can best describe as an 11-minute sitcom where the bizarre characters occasionally watch Ansari's comedy special. And like Icelandic Ultra Blue, it aired in the middle of the night on Adult Swim. But unlike Icelandic, this was an actual paid advertisement for a real product. So its inclusion in the Infomercial series is kind of debatable. Both Wikipedia and the Adult Swim wiki include it as the second episode, but it's one of the only ones not included on their YouTube channel. Personally, I find this one pretty unfunny. Ironic, I know, it's supposed to promote a comedy special. A lot of the humor is very angry equals funny, altered voice equals funny, gay equals funny. Like its predecessor, it does end with the slight suggestion of horror.
Embrace me.
While some people agreed with my sentiment about it, it does have its fans and people who believe that it was a fever dream that they imagined, which is in the spirit of David Cross's initial concept. Episode 3 was another black sheep. This one was actually a special episode of an existing Adult Swim series called NTSF SDSUV, also known as National Terrorism Strike Force San Diego Sport Utility Vehicle. It features the NTSF team showing off their new security system and iPhone app in the form of a 10-minute infomercial. Lazzo decided to roll the dice and air this one in the Normies Are Asleep slot as well, which I guess is logical. If you're promoting a real product, then the angry and confused people posting about it online is free advertising. The security system may not be real, but the NTSF SDSUV show is. But would it work out? Or would it be another failure and another blow to the infomercial concept? It was a failure. The NTSF SDSUV HISS infomercial really missed the point of what these videos should do to the audience. It opens right up with a title card. The following program is for entertainment purposes only. This is not an actual infomercial and no actual product is being offered for sale. Which, in my opinion, defeats the purpose of trying to make these things play like weird and wacky fever dreams. More so than promoting the program or starring well-known actors ever could. Not that it really mattered for this one though. Right off the bat, it feels like a comedy skit. No one would ever mistake this for a real ad.
911, what's your emergency?
You gotta help me, I'm being murdered.
Whoa, I've gotta help you? Lady, I don't gotta do anything.
This is the kind of humor you put into a school project just to fill out the runtime a little bit. It was co-produced by Abominable Pictures, who ended up being a part of 19 of the 47 infomercials, including the next one, Swords, Knives, Very Sharp Objects, and Cutlery, which was also a spin-off of NTSF SDSUV. Premiering November 27th, 2012, it takes the format of one of those home shopping channel programs, but instead of selling cookware or sports memorabilia, they're selling dangerous weapons from bygone eras. Halfway through, the host's former army general interrupts the show to recruit him for one last mission, but when he refuses to go quietly, he has to fight off their forces. This one is less bizarre and more like a shopping program that turns into a little short film. From here on out, it seems like Mike Lazzo continued to order new original infomercials from a select group of production companies that he trusted. They aren't really broken up into seasons, but you could probably put them into categories if you really wanted to, which is why I broke them up into different batches. The next 3 came out about a year later in December 2013. Broom Shakalaka is an all-in-one product that contains things like a plunger or blowtorch, and it's later discovered that selling enough of them has the power to revive the dead. This one fails to blend in as a real infomercial at the beginning, especially since it has the well-known actor John Krasinski. Krasinski. For-profit online university debuted a week later, and it's basically an outdated online game rather than a legit university. The whole joke is that it's clearly a scam, but it's not that funny, and it's painfully stretched to 11 minutes. There are hints throughout about a student named Howard who's actually a bot who takes the online classes, and at the end Howard takes over and corrupts the entire commercial. It fails to really be creepy or funny, but it's part of a trend of infomercials with dark endings. The last 2013 infomercial is one of the most interesting ones, Live Forever As You Are Now with Alan Resnick. Alan Resnick was already a master of the non-standard mockumentary format. Resnick is the creator of the YouTube channel Alan Tutorial, which was a parody of incredibly dumb tutorials which turn out to be part of an interconnected story with bizarre and disturbing elements.
This is a tutorial on if there's an emergency in your room and you're freaked out. First, you've got to find a stick and use it to whack at the freaked out, the thing that's giving you spooks.
Live Forever As You Are Now with Alan Resnick has a totally different vibe, where Alan is a tech guru who invented a digital avatar that can represent you after your death. It's not going to have you rolling on the floor laughing or shivering in your chair with fear, but it does a nice job of being both slightly funny and slightly creepy in a subtle way, due to the uncanny valley effect of the avatars. And it also touches on an interesting sci-fi concept by mocking it, so it stays entertaining. That would be the last of the 2013 batch, but the next batch would be the biggest and best batch ever, where infomercials would miraculously break into the mainstream during the run of 11 new episodes, released from October 2014 to December 2014. And it starts off with a bang, or something to that effect.
Your birthday party sucks, Derek. This is so boring. Hey, let's get him! Fartcopter is a toy commercial predicated on the fact that helicopters are cool and fart noises are funny. So if you put them together, you've got the #1 toy in the world. But the toy is so good that the boy in the commercial becomes dangerously addicted to it, and his family has to stage an intervention. I never thought I'd say this, but Fartcopter walks so that M3GAN could run on all fours. The jokes all hit, and in true infomercial fashion, it ends on a dark note. I think this comment on the YouTube upload says it best. A lot of sketches are good ideas executed poorly. This sketch is an awful idea executed brilliantly. The next three are pretty standard infomercial concepts. The salad mixer is an 11-minute sex joke, Alpha Chow is a fitness supplement, but for dogs, and Goth Fitness is a fitness program that requires sacrifices to Satan. Which may have been a funny concept in 2014, but now, 10 years later, is just a real niche on fitness TikTok, like not even done as a joke at all. And the comments are basically full simp, as they should be. Alpha Chow and Goth Fitness both have the distinction of being the only half-length infomercials, with each at 5.5 minutes. At this point, I've got to introduce a new character, which is ironic because Chris Casper Kelly is someone who loves introducing new characters, apparently. Casper was primarily a writer for animated shows, who got his start in 1998 on Cat Dog, and had written for a number of Adult Swim shows, most notably Squidbillies and Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. His idea came way back in 2013, before that first batch of infomercials had even come out. But according to his interview with Inverse, he did know about Adult Swim's experimental 4 AM time slot, and he had an idea while watching an old sitcom intro. The idea of continuing it for an uncomfortably long time. He told Esquire that it was inspired by the antics of Andy Kaufman and David Letterman, to repeat something until it gets annoying and just keep going until it gets funny again.
First idea was a straight sitcom, a happy sitcom intro, where the characters, turn to the camera and smile and their names come up, and then that just doesn't stop. My original idea was to just do that for 11 minutes, but my boss, Mike Lazzo, said, I think that'll get you about 4 minutes, and then you need to start zigging and zagging or go off the rails, and he was right.
While Casper Kelly is credited as the writer, creator, and director, he also heavily collaborated with his editor, Paul Painter, who came up with the idea to incorporate a serial killer to add an unsettling touch to the upbeat segments, which Kelly, who was itching to make something in the horror genre, embraced.
I've been doing mostly comedy, so I've been kind of pent up and not able to do horror.
They did their homework too, watching more than 40 sitcom intros and using ideas from each of them, like the font from Full House, this building to bird fade from Falcon Crest, or the spin around costume change effect from the season 2 intro of Wonder Woman. The footage was shot over 3 days in October 2013 and required over 80 extras, many of whom were family and friends who did it for free to help them get by on a minuscule budget. The killer was an actor who Kelly had worked with on Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell, where he was one of the demons. Kelly and Painter told The Daily Share that they had a year to edit it, and they would experiment with
with the cut whenever they had a break in their day jobs.
It was worked on between our other show, Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. Anytime we'd take a break from that, we'd sort of noodle around on Too Many Cooks.
Kelly claims he spent more time on Too Many Cooks than he did on his feature film.
I mean, I spent way more time on Too Many Cooks than this.
Finally, on October 28th, 2014, 3 days before Halloween, the world got its first taste of the stew that is Too Many Cooks.
Too many cooks, too many cooks, too many cooks. It takes a lot to make a stew. A pinch of salt and laughter too.
Too Many Cooks opens as a typical sitcom theme song along the lines of Family Matters, but it just keeps going and going and going. A cat mascot character named Smarf is introduced. Then it starts introducing actual cooks. It gradually gets more and more bizarre. At 30 seconds, a strange man can be seen in the background of a family photo. He would continue to pop up covertly as the tone changes from family sitcom to cop drama to 80s action cartoon and soap opera, finally making his move and killing 3 people during the parody of Dallas. From here, the horror becomes more pronounced. One of the actresses is chased off the TV set through the broken world of Too Many Cooks. As the bodies pile up, the killer stars in distorted and horrifying versions of the once happy scenes we've seen play out. The floating titles are revealed to be a contagious disease called intronitis, and the entire world glitches out. Reality is inverted as humanoid title texts are labeled with horrified horizontal humans, and a dying Smarf uses the last of his reserves of energy to press the red button, seemingly resetting the universe and finally allowing the theme song to end. But in a final photograph scene, similar to the end of The Shining, the killer makes one last mysterious appearance. I think the reason Too Many Cooks works so much better than the likes of Broom Shakalaka or For-Profit Online University is that even though all of them are repetitive, Too Many Cooks is constantly refreshing the audience by continually changing the genre, introducing new visual gags like the ever-spinning table shots, constantly upsetting the status quo, and of course, nailing the horror in a way that doesn't feel as amateur as the infomercials before it. As a content creator myself, I really get the sense that the previous infomercials were made for a passive audience. For example, someone leaning back on their couch and turning something on the TV to entertain them without interacting. Whereas Too Many Cooks is edited for an active audience, someone who's maybe sitting at their computer and surfing around for something else to put on if the video doesn't hold their attention. For this reason, it's no surprise to me that the video went viral online. There wasn't much fanfare the first night it aired, mostly a few tweets just repeating the phrase Too Many Cooks, which to be fair is just about the only thought you will have in your brain after watching it. Others were very confused. It continued to air nightly, and on November 6th, it was the subject of an article on laughingsquid.com, and at some point, someone had recorded it and put it up on YouTube where it started to go viral, and triggered a bunch of articles on November 7th from the likes of Entertainment Weekly, Rolling Stone, Fox News, and others. Adult Swim quickly uploaded it to their own YouTube channel where it exploded past 1 million views after just 3 days. Even after the initial viral outburst, the thing never really stopped growing. On November 22nd, Too Many Cooks was given a custom title font and color on YouTube, making it the only video on the site to be given this special treatment, which as far as I know still holds true today. It's become a true cultural touchstone that's been reacted to.
Is this all one show? My goodness.
Parodied.
Too many prunes, too many prunes.
And even studied.
This video is actually a very clever demonstration of the relationship between a creator and the network executives.
After Too Many Cooks, new infomercials from the second batch still continued to come out every week. The episode that had the unfortunate job of trying to follow up that act was called The Newbridge Tourism Board Presents We're Newbridge, We're Coming to Get Ya, which uses the format of a local news broadcast in New Jersey and definitely reverts back to that amateur comedy sketch tone. I feel like many of these feel like they're trying to be funny rather than just executing an idea that is funny. I'm not a comedy expert, so I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense in my head. This continues with In Search of Miracle Man, a parody of a religious donation bait program, Smart Pipe, an ad for an internet-connected toilet pipe with an array of allegedly life-saving features and social components, Book of Christ, about a book said to have been written by Jesus Christ himself and painting a much less wholesome picture of the religious icon than his depiction in the Bible, and Frank Pierre presents the Frank Pierre Resort and Casino, which uses the format of a hotel information channel to tell about this off-color resort, which seems to be haunted by Native American spirits, based on these single frames of horrific images, screaming spirits, gory interruptions, and this tribal curse scene at the end. There were a couple of these that I liked. Smart Pipe was funny and made a light commentary about the overabundance of smart products in the tech space, although it didn't have any horror. And Frank Pierre I also found humorous, and it had a clever concept. Imagine seeing that while staying at a hotel. The thing is, it would be hard for any of these to go off like Too Many Cooks did, because now that it went viral, everyone knows the gimmick.
Some are intentionally tuning into the late night broadcast in hopes of catching a new infomercial, so it's less likely that anyone is going to be caught off guard by the absurdity. And at this point, most fans of the network were aware of the Informercials initiative. This is what I call the Raccoon Eggs problem. Raccoon Eggs was a YouTuber, I guess you could call him a prank channel, who loved making people laugh in video games. His specialty was connecting with strangers online in CSGO Surf and making them laugh by making up funny stuff, doing voices, and sometimes performing songs.
Every day I eat food.
But he got so popular that he would immediately get recognized every time he went on the game, so he couldn't get genuine reactions from people, which was a contributing factor to him quitting the channel. And that's kind of where we were with infomercials coming up on the end of 2014. The popularity of the shorts online probably outweighed the linear television viewership anyway, so you could say that the gimmick was dead. But the series had one more trick up its sleeve, and it would come from our old friend, Alan Resnick.
Sometimes being a mom is like having to be in two places at once.
Mom! Hey, Mom! Mom!
That's when I stand my ground. With Claradrill.
Claradrill targets where you're most vulnerable, acts immediately, and lasts indefinitely.
If you're not a YouTube Premium user, you may or may not have realized that this is not a real YouTube mid-roll. This is a real YouTube mid-roll. Alright, remember what I said earlier about the passive television viewer versus the active internet viewer? Well, the final infomercial of 2014 would do for internet audiences what Icelandic Ultra Blue aimed to do for TV audiences. The episode was called Unedited Footage of a Bear, and true to its name, the first 31 seconds are just that, unedited footage of a bear, until it fades out and shows this mock YouTube midroll for a medication called Claradrill. After Too Many Cooks, the YouTube upload of each infomercial came sooner and sooner after the Adult Swim broadcast dates, with Frank Pierre and Unedited Footage of a Bear going live online the same day as their respective debuts on TV, so many saw it for the first time online. When the mom takes Claradrill, she drives away looking better at first, but the further she goes, the commercial slowly fades out and it gradually becomes a psychological horror film. She sees a police investigation of a tragedy in her quiet suburban neighborhood and sees a copy of her own yellow cardigan laying in the street. She soon comes face to face with her doppelganger, who chases her down and beats her up, steals her minivan, runs her over, and takes over her life. It becomes a battle of the two moms, the normal one who has her life under control and the crazy, chaotic one. It satirizes commercial drug addiction and advertising ethics in the pharmaceutical industry. What I love about Unedited Footage of a Bear is that it's the first one that goes full horror and no comedy. It also has a ton of rewatch value, with lines that foreshadow the concept, like,
Sometimes being a mom is like having to be in two places at once.
Secrets you wouldn't catch on first watch, and clues hidden in plain sight. Like, if you think your symptoms are in control, you haven't tried Claradrill. I could spend 10 minutes analyzing just this video, but there's also a Claradrill website that will bug out the more that you interact with it, making you feel like you're going through some kind of drug overdose yourself. If you click on the house in the background, you can move closer and closer to it, until eventually you're whisked into this point-and-click ARG horror game. The generic music changes to a horror soundscape, and you can click your way through the house, collect items, and interact with things. It doesn't appear that the game can be won per se, but if you inspect the source code, you'll see this message. I know you're here, written in ASCII with a URL at the bottom, which leads to this 2-second video of the mom being watched by her doppelganger from the video in glorious 144p resolution. The title and channel name are gibberish, and the only other video on the channel is called Untitled, and it's the same video in higher quality. If the mystery that is Unedited Footage of a Bear goes any deeper than that, I have not found the secret to discovering it, but this one definitely ranks near the top of the Infomercial series. It would take quite some time before the next batch was ready, but in the meantime, there was some drama among the originators of the concept. On February 12, 2015, David Cross, the co-creator of the original infomercial, Icelandic Ultra Blue, hosted an Ask Me Anything session on Reddit, and someone asked, is there a project that you've worked on in the past that you wished more people knew about? Cross responded, yes, Icelandic Ultra Blue, and went on to say that Adult Swim didn't pick up their show, but then went on to rip off their idea, calling Executive Vice President Mike Lazzo a thief. This accusation got some news coverage, and the next day, a newly created account called M. Lazzo responded on Reddit with a lengthy letter, mocking Cross for his accusation, claiming that broadcast pioneer Bill Tush already did 4AM commercial parodies many years ago, and saying, if your dumb program, which we have aired repeatedly for years and is not too bad actually, and good luck producing it anywhere else, was really all that good, we'd probably still be making it. Unfortunately, you're just too expensive for your amazing 4AM brain creations. Also, it seems like you're a totally delusional dick. Love your now total enemy, Mike Lazzo. Obviously, the most likely scenario here is that someone made an account pretending to be Mike Lazzo in order to stir the pot. However, this other post claims that it was confirmed as Mike Lazzo by a rep from Adult Swim to a news site, and by Jason DeMarco of Adult Swim and Toonami on Twitter. Both the news article and the tweet have since been deleted, and neither is backed up on Wayback, so I cannot confidently say that this really was Mike Lazzo unless he comes out and confirms it. But it's still really entertaining. Cross and Benjamin also responded to that letter, but that was also deleted. The M. Lazzo Reddit account responded one more time, saying that Cross and Benjamin were only coming out now due to professional jealousy over the success of Too Many Cooks, and saying that they were the real thieves for going over budget on Icelandic. While I can't tell you if the real Mike Lazzo owns that account, I can tell you that being a pompous dick is not necessarily out of character for him. After the cancellation of the masterpiece Metalocalypse, because Lazzo allegedly didn't like the fanbase it was attracting, they live-streamed a fax machine taking fan petitions to bring the show back and printing them directly into a garbage can. As a Metalocalypse fan, I can tell you that one was pretty brutal. That was in 2016, which funny enough is also the next date on our timeline. The next batch contained 9 more infomercials, which would be released from March 2016 to May 2016, beginning with one of the most ambitious infomercial projects. It would come from none other than Alan Resnick, who had developed a good reputation after the success of Live Forever As You Are Now, Unedited Footage of a Bear, and of course his own channel, Alan Tutorial. His next effort would be the infamous This House Has People in It. In 2023, Resnick would cite this as his favorite project he ever worked on, stating that he imagined the viewer flipping through channels on a hotel TV and being intrigued to watch it. This is a found footage horror piece where we, the viewers, are viewing surveillance camera footage of a house, and the house has people in it. The main drama in the film revolves around the daughter, Madison, who is lying on the ground in the kitchen and eventually gets stuck to the floor and starts sinking through it, causing complete panic from the family who's supposed to be celebrating the son's birthday that day. It's weird, it's kind of disturbing, and whatever is going on with Madison seems to be contagious. But the infomercial is only a small window into this world, a tiny piece of a much larger puzzle. At the end, there's a URL to absurveillancesolutions.com, which appears to be a normal website for the surveillance company on the surface, but using clues hidden in the details of This House Has People in It, you're able to log in and using other hidden phrases access more logs of surveillance footage. The website contains over 2 hours of additional content, which offers a deeper look into the psychotic characters and a deeper dive into the concepts barely touched on in the short, such as a condition called Lynx disease, the phenomenon of eating clay, and an obsession with the world's fastest and bluest cat, Boomy, who also has his own side-scroller game where he goes around eating trash, which strangely doesn't come close to being the weirdest Sonic fan art. It's a bizarre world that only Alan Resnick could come up with. Like Unedited Footage of a Bear, there's no definitive ending to the alternate reality game. You're just left to make your own conclusions about what it all means. It seems to be commenting on the malleability of the human mind and how the media and differing perspectives can change what someone believes and how they behave. There are several YouTube videos that deep dive the additional content. While Resnick would not direct any more infomercials after this, there would be some hype when another fan favorite would return to the series. The rest of Batch 3 took the Infomercials project in a different direction. Now that they had gained some popularity, the mockumentary commercial gimmick was going to wear off, so they mixed in some experimental short films and other formats, while still trying to maintain the element of strangeness that tied them all together. They also used the opportunity to test concepts for other shows. Now that there were more eyes on Infomercials, it was a safe place to air pilots and see how people reacted without the risk of upsetting their typical viewer base by airing a pilot in a primetime slot. One of these pilots was Joe Parrott Talks You to Sleep, an animated short with relaxing audio and positive stories designed to ease the viewer to sleep.
Did you know that the phrase tying the knot is a reference to how they used to use pretzels in Swiss wedding ceremonies a while ago? Here's some images of pretzels being made that I like to watch.
It really resonated with people and spawned its own series called Joe Parrott Talks With You, which sees his quirky character interact with other situations. The following week, Adult Swim aired Big Graham's Born to Shine / Run For Your Life, a trippy animated hip-hop music video for these 2 songs. This is the bottom of the barrel for me, other than Aziz Ansari. There's just nothing novel about a hip-hop video. Mops is a short film about a janitor who builds a robot to do his job, but it develops a mind of its own and goes rogue. The twist? The entire thing is told in super fast forward. While the last few seemed to be devoid of horror, the terror would come back in an unexpected way the following week. The title was Giggle Fudge USA. As of writing, this one only has 87,000 views on YouTube, and I think it's the most underrated infomercial. The concept is a variety show similar to America's Funniest Home Videos, except all of the videos showcased are kind of weird, lewd, or creepy. Too much so to show on a family-friendly channel like ABC, where America's Funniest Home Videos aired. I was about to explain what AFV is for my Gen Z and younger viewers, but apparently it's still going, and season 35 will start in 2024. Giggle Fudge USA is actually composed of mostly rejected entries to America's Funniest Home Videos, but as things get weirder and weirder, the audience just reacts with normal laughter in the most sanitized way. There's also scary music placed under some of them, making this the perfect weird 4 AM dream fever fodder. The third batch continues with Giles Vanderhoot, a collection of outtakes for a nonsensical commercial. The host is so bad and annoying that he recasts himself, only to micromanage the new actor's performance to the point that he might as well do it himself. It's a knock on directors who don't give the actors room to do their jobs. Live at the Necropolis, Lords of Synth is a mock concert recording where 3 synth musicians compete for greatness during Halley's Comet, inadvertently luring the comet towards Earth, which causes a doomsday scenario. In News Hits, a retiring news anchor is presented with a blooper reel of his greatest hits to celebrate his retirement, but he panics as it gradually turns into an expose of him and another employee plotting a murder. Despite the dark subject matter, it stays in the lane of comedy. While I am a huge fan of news bloopers.
Now to the story of a pig that is inspiring others. One pot-bellied pig has certainly endured his share of problems. Chris P. Bacon was born without the use of his
It's not the same in News Hits, because you know that their fails are fake. Still an entertaining enough watch though. The clincher for batch 3 was Mulchtown, in which 3 narrators tell stories of their lives somewhere in the South, but things get weird and their narratives don't quite match up.
At this time, the suspect became belligerent and accused my partner and I of profiling him for wearing a worm suit.
This may be the strangest infomercial, and it seems like literally nobody understands this one. There was a mini batch of just 4 infomercials that aired in 2017. The first came on October 23rd, 2017, and it was called Check It Out with Scott Clam, which is a spin-off of the Tim and Eric Show. The Suplex Duplex complex is made by the same director who did Mops and uses a sitcom format, featuring 4 performance-style wrestlers and their strict landlord. This time, only certain portions are told in fast-forward mode and others are done in slow motion. West Shapes takes on the format of a fundraising telethon to save a species called Wet Shapes, which is just a bunch of shapes floating in a tank of water. It pokes fun at the whole idea of telethons and seems to comment on corporate greed in the pharmaceutical industry.
And our nation's top scientist is here in the studio, ready to prepare an antidote as soon as he gets his giant paycheck.
Finally, Coyote Suit is a TLC-style segment about a couple haunted by the memory of their son who got dragged off by coyotes. So they invent a suit to prevent this from happening to their other son.
If David trusts you and wants to be intimate with you, he can present you with a series of puzzle cubes built into the suit, which, when solved, grant you access to different aspects of his body.
I found this one to be pretty funny and well made, though it's probably not weirder than some of the stuff that actually happens on TLC.
My name is Jennifer, and I'm addicted to eating mattresses.
The mini batch was mostly a continuation of the types of content we were getting in the previous set, that being a move towards experimental shorts, but still an occasional mock commercial to keep us tied to the concept that started this whole series in the first place. However, these were starting to see diminishing returns, and it looked like Adult Swim infomercials may be on a rapid decline after its peak. But Mike Lazzo still had a few tricks left up his sleeve. In truth, the 2018 infomercials probably could be considered 2 batches, with 4 of them being released in the summer and 2 more in December, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm gonna lump these 2018 episodes together and call them Batch 5, which would start off with a bang on June 4th, 2018.
We were told not to worry. We were told it was just talk. 3 billion human lives ended on May 19th, 2020.
I mean, the number may have been off, but May 19th is pretty dang close to when the death toll had its first big spike in spring 2020. Someone needs to look into whoever made this infomercial. The title was A Message from the Future, and it takes the form of a political commercial in the wake of a nuclear apocalypse, with candidates running for the title of Savior. This only lasts for 90 seconds, then we move on to the next commercial, which is a counter ad starring a different candidate. This continues for 6 different candidates total, each more bizarre bizarre than the last.
So let's stop politicizing this nuclear tragedy and start discussing the issues.
Yeah, it's scary accurate. The next infomercial, funny enough, also presents us with a series of commercial-length commercials. Cool Dad is a mock trailer for an 80s or 90s movie about a kid who wishes his cringy dad was cool. The commercial repeats with different variations. He wishes his dad liked Thanksgiving. He wishes his dad was a common houseplant. In the fourth one, everyone stages an intervention criticizing the dad for never trying to improve himself, always relying on the son's wishes, leading to his life spiraling downhill and the son going on a cruel power trip with his magic wish come true ability. I did enjoy this one. The mock trailer concept may be overdone, but combining it with the Groundhog Day-esque repetition makes a unique episode. It does something that other successful infomercials do too, starting with a warm, familiar piece of media and using that as a jumping off point into something darker. The next one strangely can't be found on Adult Swim's YouTube channel, which may be a measure to protect the children. June 18th would be the morning that the next infomercial would appear on the air. While all of these videos are literally made to be shown out of context, this next one, Dayworld, probably works better with the context. This one is another series pilot masquerading as an infomercial. It's an animated show about two characters with adult heads and child bodies who produce a viral video that catches the attention of an experienced producer who wants to develop a series with them. The reason it's not on YouTube may be because YouTube has rules against monetizing content that depicts family entertainment characters engaged in inappropriate behavior if it's deemed to be made for kids. Since the characters look like babies and there's really not any context to make it apparent that this isn't a kids show, it may have gotten hit, leading Adult Swim to just host it on their own website instead. The two main characters, Day and Dole, represent the two creators of the series, Jay and Cole. Jay Weingarten is a comedian and actor, and Cole Cush is an animator who specializes in that game-like, intentionally uncanny valley art style. Sometimes this is played for horror, like when Cole worked on the Don't Hug Me I'm Scared series, but in the case of Dayworld, it's mostly played for laughs, recycling some comedic scenes that Cole had previously created to showcase the character. It doesn't appear that the series was ever picked up, but just based on the pilot, it feels like there's a social commentary about a generation focused on social media and the disconnect that the internet creates with older generations. It's true that most of the pilot infomercials were not picked up. Clearly, it's not easy getting in Mike Lazzo's good graces, but if there is anyone that has, it was Casper Kelly. By this point, Too Many Cooks had racked up 15 million views, but it wasn't just the past success that paved the way for Kelly's next project to be given the green light at 21 minutes, the first ever double-length infomercial. The week of the release, he told Variety how he and co-creator Nick Gibbons landed on the next idea. "I was sort of sweating the next thing to do and the fear of a sophomore slump. We just started talking about stuff we like, including video games and walkthroughs. Mike Lazzo had just become a gamer." He went on to explain how Lazzo had soft-locked himself while playing Fallout, and the idea of the 21-minute mock game walkthrough was born. Instead of spending a year, this one went through a year and a half of development. But on June 25th, 2018, the spiritual sequel to Too Many Cooks surprise dropped. Final Deployment 4 Queen Battle Walkthrough. It starts with a streamer doing a walkthrough of a sci-fi themed first-person shooter, partly inspired by Gears of War, but after getting through the first boss, the character is discharged from the army, and the game gets too realistic, spending more time depicting the dull banalities of real life, such as listening to the character's mom yap, going to doctor's appointments, working a job at a drugstore, and going through a breakup. Eventually, we find that the streamer we've been with this whole time is actually a character in an ultra-realistic game himself, being played by another streamer. It's like this One the Onion video from 2008, but taken to a whole new level.
Blizzard programmer Chris Boldman demonstrated how the game works.
So here I'm playing as a character named Greg, who's playing World of Warcraft as a level 3 gnome rogue.
This devolves into a game within a game within a game within a game until eventually it loops back around to our original streamer and all hell breaks loose. I won't spoil the brain-melting ending for those who haven't seen it, but like its predecessor, it goes further than you ever could have anticipated. The script and performances are a little out of touch with how gaming creators actually acted at the time. They're here in 2018 using vernacular that started to feel cringe by 2012.
Keep those likes and comments coming. Daddy like your comments.
Although they claim to have done the same research that they did on sitcom openings for Too Many Cooks by watching more than 30 different YouTube creators and streamers to get the cadence and pacing right. If you can get past the dated depiction of gaming entertainers, I think the film really says something about the repetitive nature of modern life, technology, and simulation theory, or the theory that we are all part of a simulation. Although the ending claims to have wasted 20 minutes of your time, I feel like I took away something meaningful from it. Co-creator Brian Gibbons offered the following: "Are we in control of anything? These days, it seems like media is in control of us, instead of us being in control of it."
I don't know, I've been acting weird lately. maybe I'm not myself. Have you ever felt like you're not in control? LOL, so weird!
That is not the only clue that Gibbons offered though, telling Screen Crush that Casper is working on a movie script, to which Kelly responded, I don't want to talk about that yet. I want that to be a pleasant surprise. We'll revisit that. First, we've got a few more episodes to round out this batch. Food, the Source of Life shows the journey of one carrot from the farm to your plate, which involves a man being beaten to death with it and the carrot being used as a kinky toy. In the end, everyone who touches the carrot is taken over by an otherworldly force of chaos and havoc.
As long as we need food, we will be their pawns.
It's obviously making a dramatization of how everything in life revolves around gaining sustenance, and how those in control can use that need to control people. Perverts Everything is the infomercial that aired the following week. It's a weird and confusing avant-garde film, not necessarily scary, but super uncomfortable. And finally, there's Flay Away, a commercial for a procedure that aims to end the problem of body hair by removing the person's skin altogether. Hence the title, Flay Away. The host is deeply, deeply cringe, which seems to be a pattern in these Batch 5 infomercials. This one might be the most uncomfortable watch. I can't imagine viewing it with another person in the room. I think this one qualifies as a body horror, but with a silly tone, which is not a combination you see very often. That's one of my favorite aspects of the infomercial series as a whole. You get to see genres mix in a way that mainstream Hollywood would never dare to do on their own. And for some of those creative risks to happen, you have to credit the network's executive vice president, Mike Lazzo. And this is where his involvement in the story comes to an end. On December 16th, 2019, Adult Swim aired the following bumper. A man once told us, don't try to be funny, be interesting. That man ended a 35-year career here this week. We could list everything he achieved, but he'd only say, that's not interesting. Thank you, Mr. Lazzo. On the other hand, fans of beloved shows that Lazzo canceled, like Metalocalypse, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and The Venture Bros, danced and pissed on Lazzo's metaphorical grave. There was also an infomercial that came out that day, the first one in almost a year. One day shy of a year since the end of Batch 5, a new era of infomercials would begin. However, instead of the usual weekly basis, they would be released kind of randomly in late 2019 and 2020, with the last 3 falling back into the weekly pattern. I'm tempted to lump all of these into the final batch, but I think it's more appropriate to just call this the Stragglers era. Obviously, COVID probably messed up the scheduling. The first episode of the Stragglers era is a very strange one called When Panties Fly. I can really best describe this as a History Channel-like documentary about underwear, but there are a number of idiosyncrasies, primarily the fact that every time the word is brought up, the narrator refers to them as panties, regardless of the gender.
Panties, 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 panties.
And certain things seem to be made up, like this section about a corn dog test to help to see how well panties absorb odor. The humor is really, really dry, because you can't quite tell the occasional falsehoods from the rest of the information. I honestly feel like I learned a lot from it though. I just don't know if I needed to learn any of it. On April 27th, 2020, a short film called Piggy aired in the late slot, in which a commerce company called Pacific, which is a parody of Amazon, tests out its first genetically engineered employee. Turns out the new employee is incredibly inappropriate. Honestly, just kind of a low to mid-tier sketch with a higher budget. On May the 4th, 2020, Adult Swim showed a pilot called Skeleton Landlord. This was actually not the premiere for this though. Adult Swim had this live stream called Development Meeting where they took pitches from the audience, critiqued them, and dished out prize money for the best ones. So they actually watched the pilot back in July of 2019, and it had already debuted on YouTube in April 2019. They really liked it on Development Meeting and presumably acquired the rights from the creators.
Well, look, there might be something more for us to do with this, like either take what you've made and pay to put it on our YouTube, or we can watch the rest and see if there's more, but this is one of the better things we've seen on here, I think.
It's not 100% clear what happened after that, but I'm guessing they did acquire the rights and then just decided to run it as an infomercial to fill space during the chaos that was 2020. As far as I know, it's never been developed further as a series. Anyway, the episode is like a really cheesy 90s sitcom, but with an extra touch of weird. The whole thing is made at a super low budget on all virtual sets. The story revolves around this skeleton landlord who puts together a band to try to impress his hip young tenants, but he ends up accidentally killing them with an aging potion during his concert. I think I really like this kind of intentionally crappy, no-budget style with the virtual sets. However, if you're gonna take the D- in production value, I feel like it should allow the creator to better focus on the things that count. I'd like to have seen a better story. The pilot doesn't feel like the beginning of Skeleton's story, it just feels like another average chapter. There's no indication of how things will be interesting from here on out. Anyway, I spent way too long on that one considering it's not really even horror, so let's jump forward to September 8th, 2020. This one's called Wormholes, a desktop film about a man who keeps going down different internet wormholes and distracting himself from his original task in the middle of the night when he should probably be asleep. The guy is also extremely gullible, lonely, and depressed. The director, Benjamin Berman, posted it on his Vimeo page to ensure that no one will see it, where he left the caption, "Every night I go on my computer when I can't sleep and it's dumb. I'm dumb and depressed. Ben Berman." Hopefully the film is an exaggeration of his real life, not a one-to-one representation, but that is him in the video. Who's ready for an 11-minute wham-bam 90s ride? Airing on November 30th, 2020, this would be the third fitness program-related infomercial that we've covered, but this one is a guided exercise bike workout. Throughout the program, the host gradually keeps dropping information about his twin brother who died, and every time he does, riders that are following the program leave en masse. And all of them seem to be named after bacon?
Chris P. Bacon was born without the use of his
At the end, he admits that he was responsible for his brother's death. If This House Has People in It won the award for most complex, this wins the award for simplest infomercial. Just over a week later, on December 8th, 2020, class would be in session for late night audiences, during the premiere of A Life in Questions Wisdom School with Aaron Chen. It's about a street interviewer giving a course on how he asks the best questions. These days, there are a million street interviewers out there, and a lot of them are pretty weird, but this film does manage to do things that they don't, particularly with his innovative microphone. Like this 4-person mic setup that would be perfect for interviewing Weezer, all of them at the same time. He also throws each microphone away after every interview. Not much to talk about here, so let's zip ahead to the following week. Rate the Cookie with Joe Firestone. From what I understand, Joe Firestone is her real name, and she plays a character in Joe Parra Talks With You, the show that successfully spawned from an infomercial.
I'm Sarah Connor, and let's talk about edible and non-edible plants.
Sarah Connor?
Not that Sarah Connor. Sarah is a fellow teacher at the school that Joe teaches at. Anyway, that's not really important because Joe Firestone is playing herself in this infomercial, which as I mentioned is called Rate the Cookie with Joe Firestone. And basically, this is a social experiment to see if Joe can make friends by having people taste test cookies, using that time to get to know them, then giving them the choice at the end. Choose $50 cash or become her friend. Only 2 older test subjects chose friend, and the other 7 opted to take the cash. She's devastated, but when one of the 2 older test subjects calls her, she cheers up, realizing that quality connections are more important than quantity. Rate the Cookie, for what it is not bad, but I think this is the point where the plot was lost from the original concept. Icelandic Ultra Blue's primary purpose was to mess with people's heads, make them question if it was real, and to feel like a fever dream. And while we've been seeing those core values less and less since that music video that they aired in 2016, Rate the Cookie really has nothing weird or experimental about it. I'm not sure exactly which infomercials were already in the works when Mike Lazzo left and which were a result of the new regime, if any, but perhaps it was time to retire the infomercial concept. With so much weird content on the internet now, maybe it had run its course and people weren't going to be shocked by anything that came on their screens at 4 a.m. But before this story can end, our main man, Casper Kelly, had 2 more punches to pull. First, there was Danny Ketchup, which originally aired on December 21st, 2020. It pretended to be a sneak preview of an upcoming action movie.
Now Danny Ketchup is back in his biggest motion picture yet. Stay tuned for this exclusive preview.
The video uses existing action movie footage, but superimposes animated heads and new voiceover to form a story of their own. The story of Danny Ketchup, a super agent who drops puns as he fights bad guys and saves the world. This is not a new concept. The movie Kung Pao redubbed a karate movie way back in 2002, and you can find abridged versions of pretty much any popular anime series on YouTube. The cool thing about Danny Ketchup is that the face overlays allow multiple movies to be used to craft a completely unique narrative. Something tells me this wasn't made to be Casper Kelly's true follow-up to his existing infomercials, but rather just something that he made for fun during quarantine, showed it to some people, and they liked it enough to try airing it. And it's pretty entertaining for what it is.
I sure love ketchup.
Sometimes I think that's why we call you Danny Ketchup, because you love ketchup so much.
But I thought it was our last name.
That too.
But the true Casper Kelly follow-up was still brewing in the background. Remember that feature film script that was teased in 2018? Well, it took nearly 5 years, but in December 2022, the station started airing bumpers advertising their first annual Yule log.
Settle in with Adult Swim's first annual Yule log.
Next Sunday at 11:30 on Adult Swim.
A Yule log is a European winter solstice tradition that became associated with Christmas during the spread of Christianity. In the 1960s, with the advent of television, the Yule log tradition became a televised video loop with music that families could put on to simulate that warm fireplace ambiance, even if they didn't have a fireplace, or if they just didn't want to worry about the fire burning out. In the modern day, streaming services have their own Yule logs, like Disney's Arendelle Castle Yule log from Frozen, or Shudder's Trick or Treat themed Ghoul log directed by Evan Gorski. However, a Yule log is usually just a free extra provided by these streaming services. It's like getting a free sauce for a meal you order at a restaurant. Running a commercial for it and using up valuable ad space seems like a strange decision when they could be using those slots to make money. Viewers began to suspect that this could be something more, given the network's history of jokes and tricks. On December 11th, 2022, the Adult Swim Yule log would be ignited. After 2 minutes of seeing the Yule log burn, we hear someone enter the room and learn that this is an Airbnb, or some kind of short-term rental house. The owner's cleaning service flaked, and now she's got to get the place ready herself for the next renters. As she's vacuuming, there's a knock on the door, and this ultimately leads to the unexpected visitors barging into the house and attacking the owner. We then hear the intruders clean up the evidence just before the Airbnb customers arrive and come inside, and the renter zooms out his camera so we can see the entire room. As the couple settles in next to the fireplace, we learn that the man's girlfriend is extremely neurotic about the current state of the world, which is only made worse when they learn about an apparent killer on the loose in the area. I've been going back and forth with how much I want to talk about the plot because I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen it, so I'm going to stop right there. But as you can imagine, it follows the formula set by Too Many Cooks and Final Deployment 4 by starting with something familiar and pulling out further and further and further to reach chaos. And by the way, the killer from Too Many Cooks does make a little cameo at the perfect moment.
It's so hard to surprise people these days, what with the internet, all that content, special effects. Everybody's seeing everything.
I'm not going to talk about the ending, but I don't think that precludes me from talking about my analysis of it. It seems to be a message about living in the moment, because there are always going to be problems with the world. The main character is obsessed with things presently outside her control, like saving the coral reefs, and cannot live in the moment because her mind is stuck on how much of a hellhole the planet is. But to keep things vague, we also see examples of how things were messed up in the past and still will be messed up in the future. You can fight to improve the way things are, but that doesn't mean that you can't be happy and enjoy your life in the meantime. What I can say is that as of writing, this is the last infomercial to have debuted, and if this is the end, it's a perfect send-off for the series, because it has everything that made them great. It fits into the center of that diagram of stealth horror and non-standard mockumentary. It took a familiar format and pushed it further than imaginable. It confused and mind-f***ed its viewers, just like David Cross and John Benjamin set out to do with Icelandic Ultra Blue. And it was directed by Infomercial's biggest star, Casper Kelly. While Infomercial seems to be dead, there is a spiritual successor, a series called Adult Swim Smalls. This started in late 2018 and showcases experimental short films and animation. I think many of the pilot infomercials and the ones that weren't mockumentaries probably would have fit better under the Adult Swim Smalls label had it been around since the beginning. I think it's good that they still have a testing ground for new ideas that may eventually be developed into a bigger series if they resonate with audiences. According to Cartoon Network/Adult Swim archives, Smalls started in the same late night slot as Infomercials, but moved up to around midnight in 2020. From what I understand, these are mostly an online thing now. While we may not see new infomercials produced, they're definitely still an important part of the channel's history. Every year, they perform an April Fool's joke, and in 2023, they announced that the programming would be taken over by AI, causing a bunch of mayhem, including the introduction of a programming block called Adult Swim Minus, which featured all of the commercials you love minus all the annoying shows, during which they aired unedited footage of a bear and Broom Shakalaka. Also in 2023, Adult Swim inherited ACME Night, a block that originally aired during Cartoon Network hours and showed feature-length movies on Sunday nights. Sometimes infomercials are shown after the movies. I'm guessing this is done to fill out the rest of the time slot after movies of a certain length, essentially because they just need a shorter video to put there. I noticed that none of the dark, scary, or edgy infomercials are used here though. So far, they've aired Joe Parrot Talks You to Sleep, The Suplex Duplex Complex, Rate the Cookie, and Lords of Sin. This strategy may be to create a buffer so that kids who stay up to watch the movies aren't immediately hit with Adult Swim content when the film wraps up. They seem to really like using Joe Parrot Talks You to Sleep in this spot, which probably helps the little ones doze off before Rick and Morty or Robot Chicken come on. But if nobody turns off the TV, they may just wake up to find a raging doppelganger, phasing stepdaughter, whatever this is. or sitcom title serial killer staring them in the face. Remember to subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring the death bell for all notifications, and I will see you in the next one, assuming we both survive. And if you like this one, check out my documentary on the creepy clown craze of 2016. You can find that video on the left.